Welcome, everyone. Let's get right into it. As postgraduate literature scholars, you already know that reading isn't just about absorbing a narrative for entertainment. It's about dissecting the very fabric of how a story is constructed, and more importantly, uncovering the invisible forces shaping it. So in this explainer, we're going to establish exactly how theory acts as that vital lens, elevating us from passive readers to active, critical researchers. To do that, we've got a straightforward roadmap today. We'll start by challenging the traditional literary canon, then explore three distinct frameworks of critique. After that, we'll deconstruct a few core theoretical concepts, see intersectionality in action with wide Sargasso Sea, and finally outline a step-by-step blueprint for applying theory to your own texts. So, let's jump straight into our first point, challenging the canon. Why is theory absolutely indispensable for this? Well, because it forces us to move way beyond surface-level observations. It stops us from simply asking what a text says and demands we interrogate how it says it. I really love this idea. Theory is not merely an abstract concept. It is a vital lens that empowers researchers to move beyond surface-level observations. It basically functions as a forensic tool. When you pick up a novel or a poem, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It was written within a specific society, completely surrounded by specific power structures. Theory gives us a methodical way to actually see those hidden structures and assumptions, and it guides exactly what evidence we focus on during our analysis. And by consistently applying these frameworks, modern scholarship isn't just analyzing the traditional canon, it's actively evolving it. We aren't reading the classics the same way people did 50 years ago. We are uncovering hidden power dynamics. We're recovering voices that have literally been pushed to the margins for centuries. Whether we're expanding our ideas of desire and community or challenging dominant imperial narratives, using theory is, at its core, a fundamental act of epistemic and social justice. All right, moving on to our three main frameworks of critique. We are going to look closely at three highly influential lenses: feminist, postcolonial, and queer, to see how they target entirely different structures of societal power. While all three of these challenge the status quo by looking at non-normative identities, they each have a very distinct focus. The feminist framework directly targets patriarchal structures, showing how gender is a social construct used to reinforce inequality, most by looking at subverted gender roles. The post-colonial lens, on the other hand, zeroes in on the brutal, enduring legacy of colonialism and imperialism, often exploring the hybrid identities of diasporic communities. And then we have the queer framework, which challenges heteronormativity and cisnormativity entirely, analyzing fluid sexualities, unspoken desires, and performances like camp or drag as powerful forms of resistance. Now, to properly use these tools in your own work, we need to unpack the toolkit a bit. Let's deconstruct some essential theoretical terminology. You really can't dismantle a structure without knowing the names of the tools you're holding. First up is a foundational post-colonial concept from Edward Said, Orientalism. This concept reveals how the East was constructed through highly Eurocentric, exoticized perspectives purely to justify imperial dominance. So when we use a post-colonial lens, Orientalism helps us spot exactly how language and narrative were weaponized to stereotype and dehumanize non-Western identities. It reveals that the East in classic literature wasn't a real geographic place. It was a constructed fantasy designed entirely to justify colonial expansion. Next is an absolutely critical term for queer approaches: heteronormativity. This is that deeply ingrained societal assumption that heterosexuality and a strict binary gender system are just natural, fixed, or ideal. Queer approaches actively interrogate this. They look for unspoken desires and dismantle artificial binary oppositions, like male versus female or straight versus gay. We're basically looking at what's assumed to be normal and constantly asking, wait, why? And building right on that is Judith Butler's famous concept of performativity. This is the idea that your identity, especially gender and sexuality, is not some inherent essence you're just born with. Instead, it's enacted, shifting, and socially constructed. It's something you do rather than something you are. And the crucial point for us as researchers is that when characters perform these identities in non-traditional ways, they actually destabilize oppressive norms and open up entirely new possibilities for selfhood. Okay, let's bring this all together. While each theory is incredibly potent on its own, what happens when we combine them? Kimberly Crenshall's brilliant concept of intersectionality shows us exactly what happens when we layer multiple analytical lenses. Let's look at Jean Rhys's 1966 novel Wide Sargasso Sea. A singular feminist reading is great. It shows us how Antoinette Cosway, the canonical madwoman in the attic from Jane Eyre, is silenced and confined purely by patriarchal structures. But watch what happens when we layer a post-colonial lens on top of that to create an intersectional reading. Antoinette becomes so much more complex. As a Creole woman navigating the fraught legacies of colonialism, dealing with Caribbean land ownership, and caught in severe racial hierarchies, suddenly we see she is marginalized by both patriarchy and imperialism at the exact same time. This intersectional approach avoids siloed thinking entirely. It proves that the lived experiences of characters like Antoinette are shaped by a really complex interplay of overlapping oppressions. By recognizing that categories like gender, race, and class absolutely do not exist in isolation, Wide Sargasso Sea emerges as a massive critique of multiple systems of power. It's not just a prequel, it's a radical rewriting of a canonical narrative from a deeply subversive perspective. So, how do we actually translate all this high-level theory into rigorous textual research? It's time to put these concepts into action with a methodological blueprint. Here is your step-by-step method. Step 1. Perform close readings to find those recurring tropes and unspoken desires. You have to critically analyze the language, looking for gendered metaphors hiding beneath the surface. Step 2. Deconstruct the discourse and linguistic strategies of authority that reinforce stereotypes. Step 3. Apply intersectionality. Never assume a character's race and gender operate independently. Look to reveal those overlapping forms of oppression. And finally, Step 4. Always check your own researcher positionality and bias. Your identity shapes your reading, so checking your baseline assumptions is essential for rigorous methodology. And as a crucial part of this methodology, we always have to keep the ethics of scholarship in mind. The ultimate goal of theory is to illuminate the text, not to overwrite it with your own agenda. Rigorous academic work means genuinely reflecting marginalized experiences, rather than forcing a theory onto a text until it distorts. By privileging these voices and avoiding misrepresentation, your interpretations will achieve the exactness required of top-tier academic research. Engaging with theory is an evolving, lifelong journey, you know? It's not static. It constantly refines how we view literature and society as a whole. So as you step fully into your roles as active scholars, I want to leave you with this final provocation to guide your future textual research. How will your unique intersectional lens reshape our understanding of the traditional literary canon? Thank you all for exploring these vital tools with me today, and I absolutely cannot wait to see the brilliant scholarship you'll produce.